How does Magnus Carlsen play against the English opening? How does he take on Russian #1 Jan Nepo on the biggest stage of them all? In this video, you're going to see a totally new setup. And also at the end, you're going to see Nepo blunder. Nepo blunders on the biggest stage of them all. Jan Nepo has white, Magnus Carlsen has black. c4, and there's so many options. Too many options, in fact, against the English. Today, Carlsen played e6. Going for d5 next after g3. d5, bishop g2, d4. This is the surprise. I find this move very surprising because you open up the bishop. But with this pawn move, you are actually restricting white's knight coming into play. Knight f3. Normally you can go c5 here to set up to defend your central pawn. But it does give white some attacking chances, which is exactly what he needs. But Carlsen surprises me again with this move knight c6. Blocking in your c pawn, which doesn't normally happen in these kind of positions. Castle and another surprise, bishop c5. So maybe that's why he did it. He didn't want a pawn on c5, he wanted a bishop. Now, the whole point of this setup, which is just totally new for me, is this pawn stops this knight coming out. d3, we have a normal structure in the English. Nepo set up his pawns like this. We have a knight, bishop, you've already castled. In the future, you might go a3, b4. Knight f6 played. By the way, you can't go e5 here. That is a typical opening trap. You can strike with a typical move b4, which doesn't look like it's possible because it's being guarded by the bishop and the knight. If you take with the knight, you lose a central pawn. This is no good for black. If you take with the bishop, the cool thing is you can still play this move. Take, queen a4 check is going to pick back the bishop. Knight c6, if you defend it, remove the defender, take. White is much better. Back to the game, Magnus played knight f6. Knight d2 and a5, getting space, stopping. White getting in the normal a3, b4 stuff. Knight b3, another surprise for me. I thought Carlsen would drop his bishop back to a7, but he went back to e7. Let's consider the couple of movements per minor piece. Has black wasted a move? Well, maybe he has, if you look at it like this. The bishop goes to c5 and then it's come back. But I'm going to argue black has not wasted a move. Maybe white has. Knight d2 to b3. The knight really belongs on a square, a natural square like c3, but it's actually taken 2 moves to come out, not to his best square. White needs to free his position. He goes for a pawn break with e3. Take with the bishop, and knight g4. Hitting it, the bishop has to move, and it chooses to go to c5. If we go back a few moves, I was thinking of this capture, going for d4, but you go e5. Stopping white opening up the position with d4. And the reason you can't play d4 is because of a4, you hit the knight, which is going to be a theme in this middle game. This knight, man, is just not good. You want it on c3. d5, and now you can take. Both knights are hanging, but this works out in black's favour. Take. Queens come off, take. Now rook takes a2 is a brilliant move. Bishop d2. Black can continue, defend the centre. You can take on b2. Black is completely winning. So maybe this is one reason why Nepo, he didn't really want to take with the f-pawn, because after e5, white cannot get in d4 so easily because a4 is such a problem. But maybe you got to play a4 yourself. Then d4 is coming next. Bishop g4 is possible, and then the game could go something like this. And I would definitely take a position like this because there's an imbalance. You've stopped black's plan of a4, and you got to win this game because you're 2-0 down in a match. So I would have gone for something like this if I had to play for a win with white. Take. Knight g4, Carlsen forces the issue. Nepo goes for a bishop trade like this. Castle played and d4. 24-minute think. Maybe Nepo was thinking of this other option. Take. Knight d4. Take. Something like this. The Catalan, the English bishop is in the game. This knight might go to b5. It might even come back to f3. Rook can go to e1. Queen might go to e2. find a way to get your pawn to d4. However, in the game, d4 played after a 24-minute think. a4 hit the knight, take, knight c5. Things now get very forcing. In the game, a3 was played, but one question must be e5. Very complicated middle game fight. You attack me, I attack you, but I'm going to pin you with rook e1, and I'm going to do the same with rook d8. Matthew Sadler pointed this out on Twitter. b4 is a brilliant shot. A takes b3 is best. What happens if this? Well, your center falls, but the truth is you should attack knight first. Knight moves back, and then your center falls. White has two monster knights in the center. Can't go for this. So rook d8, b4, one option. Black should en passant, giving Nepo the same structure as we're going to see in the game very soon, and we get a fight. Carlsen, he's up 2-0 in the match. He doesn't have to win this game, but we get a complex fight after this. And that's exactly what Nepo wants. So maybe he could have gone for this. Maybe this is why Carlsen didn't play e5. He went a3. But it still gives Nepo the chance to go b4. He actually took the pawn. b4 is a wonderful shot. Wow. What a move, man. We saw this move earlier on in the video. In that opening trap. If you take rook b1 is the point. Rook to b1. And then b7 falls. If the knight goes back, then we can take on b7. Just want to show you this absolutely brilliant tactic if you play the predictable moves. You shouldn't take this knight because this bishop, it can come out later. But if you play take, and rook b8 offering a trade, which makes sense because the guy's rook is better than yours, take. And if you take the expected way, I think Boris Gelfand said this, the most difficult moves in chess to see are the backward knight moves. And there's a brilliant move here for white, which unleashes a double attack. So difficult to see. Because I was wondering, what's wrong with this position? Knight e1. That is what's wrong. Queen attacks knight, bishop attacks knight. There's no good way to defend both. What a move. However, this isn't forced, by the way. But I just wanted to show you this brilliant tactical line. Rook b1. If the knight moves, we can come here. White is going to be a bit better. Best move is actually b6. You attack my knight, I attack yours. Take. And rook b5 is best. Because if you play the careless move, knight d4 is winning as well. Take. We have this same problem as before. Double attack. Queen attacks knight, bishop attacks rook. No. So that's why after this, rook a6, get it out the way, and the game goes on. Rook c5, we keep playing. However, in the game, Nepo took rook d8, put pressure. Knight back to b3, which we saw anyway in that other crazy line. There was a knight on b3 defending d4. Knight back to f6. I don't think I would ever play that move unless I was kicked back. I would have taken on a3 with the rook or the queen. But Carlsen chooses to retreat the knight, controlling d5 as well. I think that's the important point. Stopping any break. Rook e1. Get out the way of the pin. So queen a3 is good. Queen e2. Couple of knights defend your center. Queen defends the pawn from the side. Queen and rook attack white's isolated pawn. This is the problem at the moment. If you can find a way to get that piece in the game, then black's doing all right. h6 first, and now h4. This move I do not understand. I think Nepo's just trying to play a useful move. And at the moment, I can't really see anything else for white that could be useful. Can't go here because you drop your center pawn. Move your rook, d5, but then why did you put your rook on the e file? Maybe rook d1 was better. Bit of shuffling. Rook d1 here. Maybe rook d2, shuffle, move over d5. That's another way to continue. But Nepo wanted to play a useful move, h4. Now maybe he's just waiting for Magnus to play bishop d7 because then he can hit him with knight e5, and that's the point. You can't do this on a previous move. So here, if h6, can't do knight e5 because knight d4, the rook needs to defend needs to attack the pawn. But here, h4, bishop d7, now knight e5, the rook doesn't attack it. Bishop back to e8, queen e3. Now we get this attack, so Nepo defends it with queen e3. It looks like white's got a great position. Got a lot of space. Queen b4, attacking c4. Now the rook attacks a2. A capture could happen, and then things are clearing. The cobwebs are clearing. Carlsen is getting closer to his draw, which suits him perfectly well because he is up 2-0 in the match. Rook b1. We have a capture. Take. Doesn't matter, the bishop attacks the pawn, queen defends it, knight g4 attacks both the queen and the pawn, and the queen goes back. Carlsen admitted later he missed this move. Queen's now come off, take. f3 threatens to trap the knight, so that's why Carlsen allows h5. Carlsen is now going to be down a pawn, bishop takes b7, and the cool thing is his pieces are so active and white's pawns are not on their best squares. The a and the c pawns are isolated. It's not so bad. Nepo now blunders in shocking style, which was one reason I mentioned at the start of the video to keep watching. c5 is a complete blunder, and we're going to see why very soon. Another option, let's kick away this dangerous knight with f3. It has to go back to h6, that's why Carlsen played h5. Knight might come back in the game, so let's go bishop e4 to stop it, and then the game goes on. The knight could come back in the game. If you go rook c4, rook c1. You've got to be very careful. You don't want to go for this. No way. White is actually in charge. Look at this. Look at this. So active, all of the pieces. So after this, you've got to play a move like rook a4 and then keep playing from here. This isn't so bad, because that pawn is going nowhere. Your rooks are more active. This knight can come back in the game, something like this. If this capture happens, it's not so bad. Rook here. Fix this pawn. This bishop can come out to a4. So if you go here, rook a3. Something like this. Bishop can come out to a4 as well. If you retreat, then definitely. And black's active. Pawn down, I mean, so what? So this was one option. So going back to the game. Nepo blunders, which sent the chess world into a state of shock. Top Russian player is not going to blunder in this fashion. 2-0 down. Well, after this move, I'm afraid he's going to be 3-0 down. This is a blunder because Carlsen now plays c6, trapping the bishop. f3, kick the knight away, back to h6. The difference is this bishop can't come back to e4. Rook e4 offering a trade. It's very important you don't go for this because now there's a way out for the bishop. Carlsen keeps the rooks on and more importantly attacks the bishop. The bishop is running out of squares. Got to defend from the front. But you've got one rook attacking it, get the second rook in the game. There's no good spot for the bishop to move. The bishop is lost. a4, rook takes bishop, rook b6. Nepo goes for this trade because then he gets the square for the knight. Take. Knight c5. If we can run the pawn down the board, we are good. But that's too far away. Knight f5, attack the structure. a5, drop the rook back, a6, knight takes pawn. Not even wasting any time. If king f2, just get the knight back in the game. Knight d4, a6, knight b5. There's no chance to push because after this, the pawn actually ends up falling anyway. The knight has come back in the game. That's why if we go back a few moves, Nepo chose to give up that pawn. Knight a4, if you are careless with a nothing move, it's still possible to blow this. White has a threat of hitting the rook and forcing a promotion, so no. But Carlsen plays a great move because after knight a4, the point of this knight was to stop this pawn moving, trapping the bishop. But after knight a4, coming into b6, Carlsen now plays c5, getting the bishop in the game. Got to use your extra piece. a7, hit the rook. We can still blunder. We can all blunder one move, forcing promotion. Bishop actually has to go here, but then the game's a lot closer, so no way. No. Rook d8 is important. If knight b6, which is what could have happened, bishop back to c6. You get promotion, but all your pawns collapse. That's why Nepo's in big trouble. Get a queen, take, knight f5. Every pawn is going to fall. Take it, come back, that pawn is going to fall, which we're going to see very soon anyway. I mean, in the game, a7, rook d8, Nepo takes, but then rook back to a8, and Nepo resigned. It's a horrible game, horrible to lose in this fashion, just chucking a piece like this. If we keep playing, just get the piece in the game, just get your extra piece. This is going nowhere. Get this extra piece in the game. Knight f5, bishop c6, rook d8, and we actually saw this before. If there was a way for Nepo to force the promotion, which there is, it's not enough because all your pawns fall on the king side. Take, take, and they drop. Everything drops. Defender pawn, that drops. There's no good way. 4 versus 2, game over. 4 versus 1. That's it, man. That's it. Horrible to see a top player like Nepo lose like this on the biggest stage. Carlsen is now up 3-0. Very likely to remain world champion. If you guys want to see how Magnus Carlsen plays the English opening from the white side, then check out this video over here. Carlsen takes on Hikaru Nakamura. However, if you don't like that choice, you might like YouTube's selection.